Hello, everyone. Hello, Elsie. Hello, Barry. Hello,
Good
Gabby.
morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Morning. Morning, Barry. Good
Good
evening,
morning.
Elsie.
Yeah.
And I think it's morning where you are. All right, Gabby?
What? Sorry.
It's morning where you are right now,
Yep,
right?
yep, 11 a.m. Yep.
Right, 11 a.m. So,
Right now.
a very good morning to you. So, welcome to this group author interview. We have Alcy and also we have Barry with us for today's interview. This is an exclusive interview hosted for the May author interview. I have been interviewing the spiritual as well as the religious authors in May. So we had like 12 authors joining us for the written interview. And out of them, Alcy and Barry are available to join us live on screen today for the author interview. So let's start with Barry first. So, Barry, probably could you let us know a little bit about yourself and as an author? So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I have a wonderful, wonderful wife, Ann, who's my partner. And I'm blessed to also have the opportunity to work with Gabby Reed, Gabriella Reed. Uh, I am a Vietnam veteran. I was severely wounded. I grew up as a orphan for a period of time before I was adopted. Um, I was in the business world. I had originally set a goal for myself that by the age of 39, I wanted to be in a place where I'd never have to work for anybody else again. But unfortunately, all during those years, I forgot, well, I didn't really forget, but I did not have a very close relationship with God at all. As a matter of fact, although uh, in retrospect, I loved God, but I didn't think that he accepted me because of being a quote unquote bastard child, and then being teased by some of my young friends. The homecoming coming back from Vietnam was not pleasant. Being asked to leave a church because the house of the Lord does not accept baby killers, which a particular minister told me. And that solidified in my mind that I was not accepted by God. And it wasn't until years later when I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that I found out that all of that had been false all along and that I was loved and I was accepted by God. And I felt after a couple of years after that that it was time to put this in writing because there is power, blessings, and tremendous love that comes with the sunrise each and every day. Even when the clouds of a hurricane or clouds of confusion, worry, financial strain, relationship issues, the sunrise is still there. And one only needs to understand that God is always with them and is keeping his warm, loving arms around them as they're going through this. So it is a labor of love in doing this. And I enjoy it. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy visiting with folks to encourage them to just open their eyes and look to the sunrise.
Right. Thank you for the wonderful introduction of yourself, Barry. So, coming back to Elsie. Elsie, can you let us know a little bit about yourself, the books that you have written, and something about your author journey and, the journey of your writing so far?
Yes, sure. Um, if somebody had told me 30 years ago that I would be an author of spiritual books, I would have said that they had no idea because I was an atheist for so many years. I mean, I was when I was a child, I was a believer, but then when I hit university, and there are so many trends going on there. And then I left the Danish church. I was living in Denmark at the time, and I became an atheist. And I was fine with that. I was absolutely fine with that. But then I was also a searching soul. I was looking for answers to the big questions of life. What are we doing here? Where are we going? Where are we coming from? And all that. And then in 1995, that is 24 years ago, a book about the Danish visionary and mystic happened. I don't think it was a coincidence, but it fell into my hand. And the moment I saw his name, I just felt that this is something I should look into. So I read an introduction to what he had done, and then I started reading his own work. And his main work is called The Book of Life, and it was published in 1931 in Danish. And after that, I read another of his main works called The Eternal World Picture. And once I had read those two books, he has written more than 10,000 pages. So I was over the moon. Saying I was enthusiastic is an understatement. Mm-hmm. I was simply over the moon, because here was answers to all the questions I had ever asked, and then some. And that resulted in my first book, Death is an Illusion, if I may show it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Death is an Illusion. A logical explanation based on Martinus's worldview. And this was published in 2002. And it's just a general introduction to what the Martinus material is all about. And let me also just say that when Martinus was 30, he experienced a very strong spiritual revelation that made him able to see beyond the physical world and into the spiritual world, where everything has its origin. And he achieved cosmic consciousness. And it is based on his cosmic consciousness that he has written all these 10,000 pages of spiritual wisdom. And it is the most complete spiritual revelation ever disclosed to humankind. It is huge. I cannot exaggerate how fantastic it is, and how important it is. But of course, Martinus was born in 1890, and he died in 1981. Mm-hmm. So it's all very new, and we are only beginning to sort of spread the word. His work has still not finished being translated into other languages. It's still in its totality only available in Danish, although it is translated. But it really is huge. But as I'm saying, we're only beginning, and Martinus himself said that it will only be really well known in about 100, maybe 200 years. So we are pioneers here. But anyway, it is still exciting. And I would like to show you my latest book called Reincarnation in a Nutshell. Yeah, and this I have co-authored with my friend Maria McMahon.
Yes, Maria McMahon.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the book that explains in totally logical terms why reincarnation is real. It really is it's a groundbreaking book for those who are interested. And the Martinus material, as I said to you, Jasvina, it's not religion. It's a basis for a merger of science and spirituality. It will not appeal to people's beliefs. It will appeal to their intellects. And but of course, it explains what God is, and it is very much in line with the work of Jesus. And it's just that it has been written for us who are alive today. So it appeals to us who live in a modern society with a scientific outlook. So it's not an object of faith. It's an object of study.
Right.
So I think I've said enough, probably.
Right. Yeah. So coming to writing, right? So I was just wondering, probably Barry, maybe we could start with Barry. When did you start writing, and what was your first book, and what made you feel like, wanting to write a book? What was the motivation behind, you wanting to write a book? So maybe Barry, could you tell us about the first book that you wrote, and when did this happen?
Sure. And if you can, let me pause for just a second. I'm going to grab it. I forgot to bring it over. It's right on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No.
My first book was Moving Forward Out of the Fog.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. When I was in the business world, I was general manager of a large company in the Baltimore, Washington area. And we were having a large turnover, particularly in the sales area. Excuse me, I just need to take a sip of water.
Mm-hmm.
And it was distressing that many of these salespeople, particularly, were coming out of college, out of some of the local colleges, with degrees in anywhere from geography to history, a couple of them maybe even in marketing. They'd last approximately 6 months, and then they'd leave to go do something else. And I got involved in the exit interviews, and I asked them, why did they even come to us in the first place to go into sales?
Mm-hmm.
Their response was, well, somebody told me there was a lot of money to be made in sales. And I said, well, yeah, there is, but you have to work. And they didn't expect that. So I went out to one of the local colleges and encouraged the folks out there that they ought to teach these incoming freshmen how to define what it is that they wanted in their life first. In other words, to define the word success.
Mm-hmm.
Society and our culture, many times, and most of the time, they say, well, boy, they're a successful person. Many people define that as, well, they got a lot of money, they got the tools of success. Not the tools, but the toys, the big house, the big cars, maybe a trophy wife or a trophy husband. But that isn't necessarily true. So these young freshmen, I wanted to try to encourage them, and I encouraged the college when these freshmen were coming in to help them define what they really wanted. Parents and maybe their guidance counselors early on encouraged them, oh, you'd make a great doctor, you'd make a great lawyer or engineer or something. And that's maybe not what was really in the young person's mind. And I suggested that they put together a course to help these students. And their response to me is, well, you're right, but we don't have the money and we don't have the staff to do that. And they challenged me to do it. So I put together this program entitled Moving Forward Out of the Fog, and began teaching it at the college to help these young people decide what it is they wanted in their future. Then it goes on to, when they define what that word means to them in writing, it goes on to help them develop goals necessary to achieve success, and then on into developing the daily action plans that they must do in order to achieve the goal. The graduation certificate is one they sign themselves, saying that they acknowledge with their signature that they now have all the tools to find what it is their life will be and how they're going to get there. So that was my very first book. And then I wrote next a little cookbook thing called Casserole 101, which is completely out of this genre, but it is what it is.
Right.
And then I wrote The Power and Blessings of a Sunrise.
So when did you write? When did you wrote this? The first book of yours. I mean, how many years has it been since you?
Oh, geez, it's been I first wrote it back in the mid 1980s, actually. And I after I left the business world, I have taught the program in schools. I've taught it in businesses. I've even taught it in prisons. I've taught it in churches with a lot of acceptance. And very, very pleased. Gabby and I are going to be putting together a program to also start marketing the Moving Forward Out of the Fog program.
Right. So, speaking about Gabby, like, you know, how Gabby, I mean, have you read any of Barry's books before?
Had I read them? No. Before meeting him, I hadn't not read his book or anything, but I took a look at it and was part of helping him edit it and breathe new life into it. But I really enjoyed his. He has a very conversational style, and so it's a really quick read, but it's also you just feel like you're talking to a friend. And also, he has a lot of, I think what's kind of unique about his writing style is he has a lot of anecdotes. So he uses a lot of stories that kind of teach a lesson and tie in the point of, you know, what he's getting to. But then he has a lot of stories from his personal experience and, you know, being a Vietnam veteran, but also, you know, having, I think everyone has their own story, but his is particularly interesting, especially for this genre.
Right. Yeah, because speaking about Barry's book and about how to actually encourage the freshmen, like, you know, the fresh graduates in soul searching or in finding what actually makes them happy in life, I think this also relates to my book because we wrote this book because what happens is that we can see a lot of graduates nowadays, you know, they are um, struggling to find jobs. You know, they're struggling to find not just jobs but something that they like doing, right? So that actually motivated all three of us to actually write the book. So in this sense, I think I can kind of, like, you know, relate to the book that the first book of Barry, you know, in terms of, you know, coming out of the fog, right? So it's about finding clarity in life and things like that. So yeah. So coming to Elsie, right? Elsie, so when did you write your first book? And tell us a little bit about your first book. When did that happen? And yeah.
Yes, as I said, I encountered the Martinus material in 1995, and it took me about a year to read most of it. I read his two main works, which is at the time was 5,000 pages. And as I said, when I had read it, I was over the moon. I was beyond enthusiastic about it, and I thought, oh my God, I have to tell somebody about this. And then, because I have a university degree in English and in Spanish for that matter, I decided to write it in English because I thought, well, the Danes, there's no point in writing it in my native language because the Danes, they can just go and read Martinus's original work. So I wrote it in English. And it was not as if it was, well, of course it was a conscious decision because I thought, this is so interesting. I have to write about it. I'd have to tell people about it. But it was also as if those thoughts, they wouldn't leave me alone. I mean, something was like forcing me to go and write. And I tell you, it was the easiest book to write because I felt as if it was simply downloaded. I just sat down at my computer and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And it was really not a big job. It really wasn't. I mean, you may think it's 350 pages and it's full of spiritual, complicated stuff, but it was just like so easy. I think it was something that I simply had to do. So for that reason, I did it, and I then started looking for a publisher, and I probably started in around the year 2000. And in 2002, I did find a publisher in the United States called Paragon House, and they published it, as I said, in 2002. But after that, I have actually self-published the rest of my books because I find that so much easier. I mean, you finish your manuscript, and in two days after, it's up on Amazon. So I mean, it doesn't even cost you anything. So I think that was just like such a gift, really. If you're an author writing in a niche, a market, and you don't have to wait for the rejections and all that. So that's what I have done. And of course, then comes the whole marketing thing. But that also comes even though you have a publisher, because your
Correct.
publisher is not going to do your marketing
Yeah,
for you.
yes, yeah,
They may help you, they may support you, but you will
correct.
still have to do it yourself. So I think the whole publishing world is really changing, and it's going fast.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was what made me write, and after that, after the first book, I've written 6 more because it's so interesting, and there are so many aspects to the Martinus world picture that
So
yeah.
yeah. So, how do you structure your books? Because now that you have 7 books in total, right? So, how do you plan? Like, did you plan ahead? Like, you want to write this. The first book is going to be about this, and the second, and then the subsequent book is going to be on what topics or something like that. How did you,
It was easy because the first book is a general introduction, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
My second book is called The Art of Attraction, and it's about the law of attraction because Martinus actually wrote about the law of attraction as far back as in 1932, long before there was something called The Secret and Esther Hicks and and all that. And the law of attraction is hugely important. It's the most powerful natural law at work in the universe. So I wrote about that, about how you can work with the law. Of course, the law works all the time, but once you become aware of how it works, you can actually join in and change your life for the better.
Right.
And after that, I wrote, which I consider probably my most profound work, called The Undiscovered Country, which is about all the evidence for life after death, because obviously my first book is called Death is an Illusion, so there is no death. There's just an exchange of bodies. So I listed all the evidence for life after death, there's a lot more than people realize, I think. There's a lot more on this level, like the near-death experience, children who remember past lives, deathbed visions, like after death communication, and there are other aspects of it. So yes, there's a lot of it, and I compare it to the Martinus material, and it fits completely. So then I just go on picking aspects, and my latest, Reincarnation in a Nutshell, here you see it again,
Yes.
is the logic and the evidence for reincarnation. All life forms reincarnate. It's just not just humans, it's all life forms, from atoms to cells to molecules to plants and animals and humans. Reincarnation is a completely fundamental principle for how life appears here on the physical plane. So yeah, and I have many more books planned because, as I said, the material is
Right.
so huge.
Right. So, talking about the impact that the book has on the both of you, right? The both of you, the books that you've written, the kind of impacts that your books had on your readers, or probably your family, your friends, right? So, talking about that, what is the most memorable feedback that you've gotten from your readers, right? So Barry, could you tell us about that? About your work, and how has it been so far? The feedback from your readers.
Well, let me start off.
Yeah.
Let me start off with as Gabby classed as an anecdote, but it's true. Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the signers of our Declaration of Independence back in 1776, was out for a leisurely dinner with some of his friends. And at about that time, the town drunk staggered over and hollered at Franklin, said, "Where's all that happiness that declaration thing guarantees?" And Franklin just kind of smiled up at him and said, "My friend, the Declaration of Independence does guarantee you happiness, but you have to catch it yourself." And, when you have a relationship with God, who presents all these blessings and opportunities, I've had people tell me that their eyes have been opened, that they didn't realize the tremendous opportunities in spite of the problems that they might be going through. And people have been inspired by my own story, which the sunrise story and how it developed was something that actually happened to me back when I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that actually had been given at that time 12 to 18 months to live. The doctors had told me that they could keep me comfortable with drugs. And I was out on a Florida beach very early one morning, and I guess I was sitting on my pity pot, so to speak, staring up at this beautiful starlit sky, crying up to God, what did I ever do to you? And at that time, as I mentioned earlier, I did not have a relationship with God. I didn't think that he'd ever accepted me. And about that time, the sun started coming up, and I didn't like it. I couldn't make it go down. I couldn't make it go sideways. I couldn't make it do anything. And I started thinking about people that I knew on the left side or the right side of the horizon, people that I knew in life who had made bad choices in relationships and their finances. I knew some people that were abusing drugs and or alcohol. I knew people that had gone through divorces, had some legal issues. On the other side of the horizon, I saw people that, and knew people that had wonderful careers, wonderful family lives. Their finances were where they wanted them to be. And about that time, I turned around and walked back up the beach, looking down at my shadow, and I realized it was the shadow of my past, and I couldn't do anything about it. And that's another thing some of my readers said, that it told me that I've helped them realize that their past mistakes are their past mistakes. There's nothing that they can do, but they can look forward. And so I fell to my knees and accepting Christ again, and I walked back down to the beach. And if I may, very quickly, God showed me how I could do and live even for that day by building a bridge, because the waves that were coming in represented obstacles that I'd be facing, that everybody faces. We all have bumps in the road or things that happen. He taught me I could build a bridge up and over those waves, built upon 3 pillars. Number one, my vision of what I wanted my day or my life to be. Second, my willingness to carry through whatever activities or goals that I needed to do. And third, my commitment. And I've done that now since my diagnosis, and that doesn't mean that I haven't had other obstacles that I've had to face, but I now class them as merely minor inconveniences. So I try to help my audience understand 2 things. Number one, that they are going to face obstacles and or minor inconveniences, but with God's love, with his arms around you, you can accomplish anything in life. So I've had very, very good response.
Right. So coming back to Elsie. So Elsie, what kind of response that you've received in the past about your work, and how well received it was in the past, and how is it going so far for you? What's the most memorable feedback that you've gotten?
I think when Death is an Illusion was published, I was expecting it to be a bestseller, to be quite honest, because I thought this is a fantastic, it explains so many things in a completely logical way. It's not something you have to believe in, you just have to read it and see the huge, big picture, to see the logic and the love and everything. But that absolutely did not happen, because like for instance, most of the friends I had at the time, I was expecting them to say, "Hey, hello, what a great book you've written," and there was complete silence. They did not say a word, and I was like, what's that? Why don't they say anything? And then I realized that they just did not basically they did not understand it. They were, let me put it like this, they were not on wavelength with this material. Sorry, this always happens when I'm talking about this. And then, of course, my book also hit people who were on wavelength with it, and they were over the moon. They were like, "Oh, well, this is fantastic. This is what I've been looking for forever. This is so great. It totally changed my life. It's amazing." So, but this was predicted by Martinus, because he said that at the moment when he was writing his work, he was completely unknown. And as I said, he died in 1981, so it's about 40 years ago, 38 years ago. And he knew that it would not appeal to the majority of people alive on the planet at that time. But he also knew that he was writing for the future, for future generations. That he knew that his work would only be made a major breakthrough in between 100 and 200 years. So as I said, we are only beginning, but somebody has to hold the fort, if I may say so, until time is ready for his material to spread in the world. And I just consider myself one of those people who are helping hold the fort and spreading the word as best I can. And I must say that a lot of people that I have been interviewed quite a lot lately, and everybody I've spoken to have been really interested. But I mean, you have to be, basically the Martinus material has been written for those who no longer have a faith, who no longer have a religion. It's basically been written for those who have suffered through so many things in their former lives that they have sort of said, I cannot believe in what the religions say because they does not appeal to my intellect. I can't believe it because it's all based on feelings, and now my intellect has grown and it doesn't appeal to me. So those are the people that actually the Martinus material has been written for. So we can say it's been written for those who are spiritually bankrupt. But I must say, as I was also spiritually bankrupt, it's so catered for somebody like me, and it will cater for those people who are equally spiritually bankrupt. So that's really it. It's not an object of faith. It's not something you should win. It's something you should study. And I have to say, it's a lifelong study because it is just so many pages to read. Yeah.
So, now that you've written books, you've written about 6 or 7 books, and Barry has written, Barry, you've written about 3 books right now. Is that so?
Yeah, but the casserole book certainly is not of this genre. It was just something that I did for fun.
Yeah.
Right. So talking about marketing now, right? So how do you go about that? And I think now, since we have Gabby with us today, and so probably Barry and Gabby, maybe you can share your experience with us about marketing, and what do you feel about marketing? Since you've written a book that is a religious book, I would say, right, Barry? Yours is more towards a religious book. So, right.
If I may, marketing to me is called Gabriella Reed at marketingbygabby.com. So,
Yes.
Gabby, that question's best for you.
I can definitely speak a lot to that. I think what's really important, and especially in this genre of a book, I mean, it's obviously different than if you were trying to market a fiction, a novel, a fiction novel, because it's less about, necessarily like making the characters the center, the thing that attracts people, and it's more about making almost yourself, since his book is very much based on his personal experience. It's about connecting with people. And so the best kind of marketing is not just, putting out a link to your Amazon page and hoping someone buys. It's more about what is that part of his story that will appeal to, a very targeted demographic of people, because you want it to connect with someone. So to me, it's just, how can I best get Barry's story out into the public? And I think it's definitely integrating all of the platforms that you have available to you. So Facebook is definitely a big one. Using video, being able to get his face in front of people's eyes, and not always relying on an image of the book. Because I think ultimately that's what people are buying. They're buying a person, they're buying an idea. They're not necessarily buying a book. And so it's having a really good website too, that just really explains what you do. That's simple, clear, easy to use. just getting the story out there through the and also in-person events, I think, are huge for authors too. I think it helps alleviate those or eliminate those barriers between you and your book.
Correct. So I think it's all about part of author branding, like how you brand yourself as an author, right? And how you can actually engage with your audience. It's not just when it comes to online marketing. I think it's a very crowded place, right? The internet is a very, very crowded place, and how do you actually engage with someone online, and how do you actually persuade them to buy your book? So I think here, when you brand yourself as an author, it creates a lot of power. It creates a lot of it speaks for you. When you focus on your author branding, I think it really speaks for you, so that the entire marketing probably it makes things more probably easier, I guess, in that sense. So coming to Elsie, so how has it been for you, like in terms of marketing your books, so far? So what have you used? What tools have you used? What was helpful before this?
Yeah, well, I've tried my way, and I mean, Death is an Illusion came out 17 years ago, so I've been trying to do this for a lot of years, but it's only maybe in the last 5 years that I have done more for the marketing. And when I didn't do it to begin with, it was just I did not know where to begin. And you can say that the book market in English is crowded. I call it a jungle, because there are so many books. There are millions of books out there.
Right.
And how do you stand out? So what I have learned is that you have to have your branding. And my branding is that I am an international authority on the spiritual science of Martinus, the Danish visionary and mystic. That's my branding. Because you have to have that, which is something I learned. I didn't know that I had to have that. And then, of course, I established, I now have 3 websites. And my latest website is called newspiritualscience.com. And that's my English website. And I mean, you have to have websites. And I also have a newsletter. I have a blog. So you have to be constantly uploading new stuff. I upload a new blog post every month, actually on the 21st, which is today. And I have my author profile on Amazon, which is linked to my blog. So as soon as it's up on my website, it's also up on Amazon. And then, as Gabby mentioned, Facebook, I do Facebook adverts. And well, and I'm in contact with lots of people. You cannot market your book and not spend money. If you think you can do it free, you're greatly mistaken. So I have paid this, that, and the other, to have a podcast and interviews and you can pay certain organizations to sort of keep marketing or spreading the word from their point of view. So I mean there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much money you can spend, because I think in this niche, getting your money back is no guarantee. There's absolutely no guarantee. That's my experience, and I might hope that Gabby has another one, and but I don't think there's a magic wand that we can just do like this, and our books will start selling.
Yeah, it's definitely all testing and experimenting and seeing what works, because what works for one author is not going to work for another, and it's all just kind of finding that and constantly creating content too. I think is important to keep people engaged.
So I think
and writing new books, I mean, you cannot stop writing, because if you want to be accepted as an author, you have to write a new book. I think once a year, or maybe once every 2 years, because if you don't keep it growing, it just, I think it dies down. So yeah, it's a huge job. Thank God I'm retired from the day job. So because now I'm busier than ever, I bet Barry is the same.
Right. So, I mean, I see. I mean, I think you've co-authored a book with Maria McMahon, right? So, um, uh, how does collaborating with another author from the same genre, how has it actually helped you, or probably how has it helped you? Like since your book is very niche, and how do you go about finding the right pool of readers online? Like yeah.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
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 Are you asking me how I found my co-author,
Yes,
Maria
Maria
McMahon?
McMahon.
Yes, because that was so funny. She lives right close to me, and we didn't know each other. And she went to her chiropractor, which whom I knew,
Uh-huh.
and they got talking about spirituality and the meaning of life, and then he recommended my book, Death is an Illusion, this one,
Mm-hmm.
and she went right home and bought it. And 2 days later, she'd read it, and I had her. She had contacted me, and like she was, as I said, she was one of those people who were over the moon about it, like completely over the moon. It so appealed to her, and that just means that she was where this material like hits home,
Mm-hmm.
and that won't happen to everybody, absolutely not. But we became great friends, and since then we talk every week, we go hiking every week, and then this idea came up about the joint venture in this nutshell series, because we're going to write more, and just like a short thin books that take
Mm-hmm.
out one of the subjects that the Martinus material are about. And it works like this, that I write what Martinus sort of says about this subject, and then
Mm-hmm.
Maria comes in with like what else is out there. Like if when I say reincarnation or near death experiences, she would
Right.
that that's her what she has read about this, and so she supplements um, what I write in a more maybe in a more general way, I could
Mm-hmm.
probably say. I
Mm-hmm.
only deal with the Martinus material because that is where my expertise lies, and where my
Mm-hmm.
main interest lies.
Correct.
And then supplements with things from out there that people can go and read about, and in that way I think it was so easy, because I just sent her my manuscript, and then she added whatever she wanted. So
Yes.
we did
Right.
not have any disagreements or
Right.
anything, you know. It was really it was a fine cooperation, I must
Mm-hmm.
say.
Right. So, talking about engagement with audience or with the readers, right? So, I think before we start our broadcast, we were just briefly talking about book signing events. So, Barry has had book signing events before this, and Barry, you're also a speaker, motivational speaker, right? So, could you tell us a little bit more about how being a motivational speaker, how do you engage with your readers, and how does this book signing events, all this actually helps you in terms of marketing, in terms of getting the message? It's not just about marketing, but getting the message of your book to to be out there, to put that message out there.
Well, first, I don't necessarily believe in motivational speaking.
Uh-huh.
You might be able to be up on a stage and you might be able to motivate folks for a period of time, but once they get back out into the real world,
Yes.
sometimes that drifts away. So by using anecdotes and helping other folks understand that they can motivate themselves certainly helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things where I received a lot of motivation and a lot of ideas, I am very active in the veteran community here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And with a veteran and with active duty, it's always God, country, family. And I enjoy very much and get a lot of motivation myself in speaking with other veterans. And I also try to seek out other ministers, dependent upon their forward looking and how they speak. And I
Mm-hmm.
try to translate that to the audiences. And there's nothing, we just did a book signing event up in Indiana this past weekend with Gabby. And there's nothing like someone coming up with a smile on their face. And you can even see it in their eyes when they say, I mean, they don't have to open their mouth. You can see, I got it. And they understand, and they're seeking to understand more about God and how they can receive him on a daily basis.
Right. So, speaking about your upcoming books, right? The upcoming plans for the year of 2019, for the year of 2020. So, Elsie, what plans do you have? I mean, are you writing any books at this point of time? So, could you tell us about that? And could you tell us about where people can actually find you? So maybe your websites, your the links that your blogs or something like that. So tell us about that.
Yes, I'm actually, Maria and I are planning to, this is the first book in a series, the Nutshell series, and we're planning to write the next one. And I'll start writing it during my summer holidays, which of course then won't be holidays, but that'll be fine. And normally we go up, my husband and I go up to Denmark to pass the summer, and we have a lovely summer house, and there I will write it. And the title will be Fate and Karma in a Nutshell. So it will be about how we create a fate, how can we create a happy fate for ourselves, because I think that fate is such a big mystery to most people. And it really is not that difficult, because it's simply, and even Jesus said so, you reap as you sow. And because Jesus knew all this, he was completely knowledgeable about it. You reap as you sow. But of course, because there's so much sowing, there also has to be a lot of reaping. And that's why one lifetime is not enough. And that, of course, refers back to the first book, Reincarnation, because you cannot make do with only one life. And I mean, there's a lot, we all go through a lot of suffering, and that is really part of our journey, because we have to sort of suffer our way to compassion and to universal love, so that we can embrace all living beings, plants, animals, humans, whoever they are, however good or bad they are. And I mean, like when I'm thinking about Barry and his experience in Vietnam, I'm sure that you will not be a soldier in your next life. That's what I suppose, because whatever horrible things you have been through in a war will make such an impact on your psyche. And we have in our consciousness, we have something called the fate element, and all our experiences are stored there, so that when we enter a new life, we will take whatever experiences we have had. They go with us, so that we don't lose any knowledge or wisdom that we have reaped in one life. We take that with us into our next life, and that will, of course, decide our choices, what we do, what we can find it in our hearts to do to others is very important, because when we have suffered ourselves, we cannot go and treat other people or animals in a really bad way, because we will have compassion. We will have compassion when we see an animal suffering in a pigsty or whatever, and we will become vegetarians eventually. And I mean, so we're all on this huge long journey, and it is really very long, because it started in the mineral kingdom, and then we were plants, and then we were animals, and then we are now unfinished human beings. We haven't really reached the finished stage yet, but we are on this journey. And as I said, there's a lot of suffering going on, and when you look at the world right now, it's not a pretty sight. There's so much happening, so many things that are not looking good. There's terrorism, there's climate change, there's greed, there's unhappy fates here, there, and everywhere. There's a lot of crime, but it's all a part of the level of evolution that the Earth and us are at the moment, and it's actually, it's not as bad as it looks, because we are just reaping what we need to reap to become real, compassionate, all-loving human beings, and we're all on our way. And because death is an illusion, I mean, there's absolutely no need to fear death. Dying is a fantastic and wonderful experience. Just ask those who have actually tried to die, the near-death experiences. And we will come back, and we will come back a wiser, a better, a nobler, a more moral person. So I mean, everything is really very good when you look at when you look at it from the bigger perspective. And I'm not saying it's fun to suffer, because obviously it isn't. And I'm not saying that people suffer, that it's their own fault, because that is not how you should conceive the concept of karma. But it's because when there's action and there's a reaction, and that's simply how it is. There's no moral judgment in it. And karma is not a punishment. It's a loving instruction from an extremely loving God, telling us what is the right way forward. And yeah.
So Barry, so are you writing any books at this point of time? So what is the plan that you have next for your next books?
Well, before I tell you, Gabby, this is not an instruction to start marketing anything, but I have worked and almost have an outline completed. You know, one of my favorite authors that I've enjoyed over the years is Zig Ziglar. He had a quote at one time that I truly love, and I try to live my life. And that is, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything you want. So I put together an outline. I have no title of the book, but it is all about a veteran. As I mentioned, I'm very involved in the veteran community, who had a wonderful life, wonderful family. He was very financially secure. He goes off to war. He volunteers to go into the military and go off to war. And when he returns, he finds that his family has deserted him. They've taken his finances. He's been totally destroyed, really, in his personal life. But by following that concept and that quote of Zig Ziglar, if you help enough other people get what they want, he took that to heart. And soon he was one of the richest men in the world, not necessarily financially, but he had everything that God was offering upon his own sunrise. And every day, by making other people richer and what they wanted, he was receiving any more. So hopefully I'm going to have something in book form by the end of the year. But Gabby, we're very busy with this right here, right now.
Right, yeah. So as we are nearing to the end of our interview today, so probably Elsie, would you like to share the the links to your blogs, or probably your websites, or where can readers can actually find more details about you, apart from your Amazon, of course? So where can readers actually learn more about you?
Yes, I have my latest website is called newspiritualscience.com. And on it, I have a short introduction to who Martinus was, very short, I must say. And then I present my books, and I have my blog, which is now quite growing. It's now I think I have probably 50 articles about aspects of the Martinus work. And I have a lot of free stuff. I have videos and podcasts and free chapters from my books and audios and articles. So there's a lot of free stuff, so that you can sort of get familiarize yourself with this material, and you can subscribe to my newsletter if this material appeals to you. Let me put it like that. So
right. Yeah. So About Barry, I think Gabby would be the best person to, I think, explain about where readers can actually learn more about Barry's work, right? So, Gabby, probably you would like to share, the links to Barry's work, or how do you actually, put together the marketing materials for Barry? We can't hear you
I
actually.
can't hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Most of the information about everything from his books to his speaking services to he has a blog as well where we post content pretty regularly, can be found at seeyoursunrise.com. And then he is on Facebook at Barry Rice, motivational speaker and author, and you can follow him on there. And those are kind of his two primary places. But yeah, that's where we would encourage you guys to follow Barry and see what he's up to, and follow his content. And then also we have a free chapter of his book as well at seeyoursunrise.com/free-chapter, so you guys can kind of take a look at that and get a look and feel for his writing. But
so do you also put up the links to his upcoming events or something like that? So
yes.
are those information also available?
Yes, there will be an events page on his site this week, actually. Starting to build that one out.
Awesome.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So,
Can I maybe just say quickly that I also have a Facebook page called newspiritualscience.com. No, New Spiritual Science 101. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. That's not sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as we I think we've come to the end of our interview today. So I would like to thank Gabby. I would like to thank Barry and also Elsie as the two authors who've joined us for the May author interview for spirituality and also religious genre that we had today. So it was an absolute pleasure to have the two of you to share your experience with us, and also Gabby sharing the experience in terms of marketing for Barry. So it was a pleasure having Gabby today as well with us. So thank you all so much. And as I mentioned earlier, the link to the YouTube will be available right after we end this broadcast. So you can actually use that link to send it to your fans, family, and friends for them to actually watch the interview as a replay. So yeah. Thank you so much, Barry. Thank you, Elsie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Have a great day. Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.